I was a TV weatherman for more than 40 years. I talked about floods and storms and tornadoes and blizzards and ice storms and all kinds of things. And when I wasn't talking about that, I was talking about what you could see in the sky. Things like eclipses, meteor showers, various planets, and so on. But I'm not the weatherman anymore. But I still have a lot to talk about. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome again to the Hey Kevin Show. This is edition number 6. It's been a little while since we've gotten together, and I have a lot to talk about. One thing, some people have mentioned to me, they say, Kevin, with that longer hair of yours and those glasses and that beard, you look like Michael McDonald. Michael McDonald. I don't know. Michael McDonald. I don't know who I keep forgetting. I don't know who he is. Well, at any rate, welcome to the show. I do want to point out something. I had a question about this. All right. This little dude right here was given to me by a farmer, and I don't remember who it was. It was a long time ago. I did a story down, I think it's around Richland County, Illinois, or some place, a place like that. And there's a farmer down there, and he took me back into his shop and he gave me this. He says, I make these, and look, this got like it's part of some teeth from some sort of a thing, and he put all these things together, and I just thought that was great. And you might wonder what that was. That was given to me by some fellow down there in Richland County, Illinois. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Go, smell that? Can you smell that? That's the smell of autumn. That sort of rich, musky, sort of a dead leaf kind of a smell. There's a word for that, and the word is rumescent. Rumescent. When you breathe in the air and it smells like fall, and you look around and you say, man, it just smells like fall. That is rumescent air. Okay? So there you go. Speaking of fall and autumn and so on, have you noticed? We had a nice little warm up. We had actually some really cold weather. We had even a little bit of snow in some areas, and that set us up for a perfect Indian summer. Have you heard of the term Indian summer? Some people have not, apparently. And I don't want to be politically incorrect by saying Indian summer, but I don't think you know that I don't mean anything by that. And that pretty much here in the Midwest is what we have called it. But there are some other names. If Indian summer makes you a little uncomfortable, St. Luke's Little Summer, Second Summer, St. Martin's Summer, All Saints Summer, Badger Summer, and here's another one. Old Wives Summer. Actually, I think I'd rather take my chances in offending some Native Americans than some old wives. But anyway, I digress. So, Indian summer is a period of time that is unusually warm in the autumn. But there are just any old spell of warm weather in the autumn isn't Indian summer. There are some definite things that must happen before you can have an official Indian summer. And here they are. It must occur after the autumn equinox. All right. So we've done that. After the first day of fall, you have the possibility of having an Indian summer, but there's more. It must occur after a killing frost. All the plants, all the flowers, everything must have been killed by the frost. Third, daytime temperatures must be several degrees above what would be the average for that time of year. Okay. And so, fourthly, it should occur more than just a single day. So, one warm day after a killing frost doesn't set us up for Indian summer. It should be a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, maybe. And also, there are a couple of other things that go into this. Ideally, an Indian summer will occur after November the 11th, which is St. Martin's Day, where we get the term St. Martin's Little Summer. So, at any rate, it must occur after November the 11th. And here's something else. If you have bees, if there are bees, it's not Indian summer. I can say now that we have met all of this criteria, and we are now and have experienced an official Indian summer. We've met all of the qualifications. As a matter of fact, one is that ideally you have a little bit of snow before an Indian summer, and we've had that. Now, I'll tell you something about the term Indian summer. Back many years ago, 1700s, 1600s, and so on, when settlers came here to this part of the world, they believed that the Indians, the Native Americans around, were burning wood and leaves and brush and so on to put smoke up into the air because an official Indian summer back in the old days used to be kind of hazy and smoky. Well, we don't have that so much anymore because we don't have wood stoves so much, people burning fires and leaves and things like that. And it just doesn't happen quite as much. But an Indian summer is one that is still warmer than average and I'm losing my, my train of thought. Indian summer, the term dates back at least to the 1700s when it was first used. Now, William E. Wilson, in his wonderful little book, the Wabash, which is about the Wabash River and life along the Wabash back in the old days, he wrote that the term Indian summer came from when this period of warmer air came in, this warmer weather came in. The Native Americans, the Indians, would do raids on the settlers, little places where they had their supplies and things like that. And so the Indian raids went on at that time. I don't know if that's where the term came from or not. But at any rate, if you've heard of Indian summer, we are officially into Indian summer. And it has been really nice, but it doesn't last long. Enjoy while you can. Let's do a weather quiz, shall we? All right. Tonight's weather quiz has to do with planets, planets in the sky. And so you look up there in the sky and you see these planets, and sometimes the planet appears to move backward. So when planets appear to move backward in the sky, it's called backsliding, retrograde, or they don't move backward. Think about it. The answer is retrograde. All right? Retrograde. Now, let me talk about this. Ancient sky watchers used to look up at the sky and they noted the positions of the stars. And it's true that you can see a star at a certain time of year. It will always be there. Okay. And so these stars are very reliable. And ancient people used the stars and their positions and so on so that they could plan for planting and harvesting and other things that were going on. And so they relied on these stars to tell them what was going on. The sky is the best calendar ever created, frankly. But sometimes they would look and some of these stars appeared to move around. They weren't where they were supposed they weren't like the other stars. Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not there at all, sometimes they go backward into retrograde. And so what happens is these moving stars actually were the planets. And the people who observe this. The ancient Greeks, they had a name for these moving stars, and they called them the asters planetae. The asters planetae the moving stars or planets. The planets are the wanderers. They go from here to there in the sky, and they're the ones. The five original planets were Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and then the moon and the sun. And there we get the seven gods that the ancient people uh, observed. All right. And so they watch these stars moving around and so on, and the planets are the ones, the wanderers. Don't be concerned too much about planets in retrograde, by the way, because we do have some planets in retrograde right now. They are Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. And astrologers believe that a planet in retrograde can be a time for personal reflection. You know, you think about, "Well, where's my life going? What do I have in the future?" And so on. It's a good time to just reflect. Mercury in retrograde sometimes can mean be cautious. Just take it easy. All right. Don't plunge into something that you're not sure about. Um, the thing about it is, astrology, take it or leave it. I'm not quite sure what it does or what it does not do, but don't be too concerned about planets in retrograde. Actually, it happens very often. And so if you are old at all, a year, maybe 2 years of old and older, you've already gone through several retrogrades. You'll be just fine. I wasn't going to really do this, but then I became aware of something that I wanted to pass along to you. The Farmer's Almanac. Here it is. The Farmer's Almanac. Uh, they have announced that the 2026 edition of the Farmer's Almanac will be the last one they'll ever do. The almanac has been published every year since 1818, and but times are changing, frankly, and so production and distribution costs have increased to the point that publishing this 208-year-old institution, it just hasn't become something that they can profit by. And an almanac is such a precious thing. Um, I, I I don't know what I would do without almanacs. The almanac is such an old, old thing. It goes back thousands of years. As a matter of fact, the word almanac is of Arabic origin. Almanac was the term, almanac. And what initially happened with almanacs is they were star charts. And I've mentioned to you before that you can tell the seasons by looking at where the stars are. And the original almanacs were star charts. And they would let you know when there would be a star here, a star there, and so on, so you could plan your life and know what to do. Also, there was maybe the influence of the planets and the moon and the sun and those kinds of things. All this wonderful information has been placed into an almanac. Now, the first documented use of a published almanac is back in 1267. It was done in Latin by Roger Bacon, all right, and detailing the movements of the planets and the stars, the phases of the moon, and so on. And so, what we're looking at really is a great historical document, a wonderful treasure of information, eclipses, moonrise, moon sets, and so on. The Farmer's Almanac 2026, this is the last year. But we still have the Old Farmer's Almanac. This is continuing to be published since 1792. So the publication of this is a little more than the publication of this one. But I wanted to let you know that almanacs are absolutely fascinating things to read and so on. I actually undertook concocting or compiling an almanac a few years ago. I had a great time doing it, but it was a lot of work. So at any rate, almanacs will still be around, but the old farmer's almanac, no, I'm sorry, the farmer's almanac, not the old farmer's almanac. The farmer's almanac This is the last one. I want to tell you about an experience I had early in my weather career, my TV weather career. So I went on the air, and it was just about to be St. Patrick's Day. And here in Terre Haute, we have a big St. Patrick's Day parade, and there are festivities and all kinds of things. And elsewhere across the area, St. Patrick's Day is celebrated. And so I got on the air the night before, and I said, folks, this is going to be a great St. Patrick's Day. We'll have sunshine, a gentle breeze, spring like weather, just wonderful. Have a great time. I'll see you at the parade. Well, the next day, it was windy, about 45 degrees, raining, spitting some snow, and I thought, ugh. So I went to the parade, and that's when I learned that as a weatherman, if you blow a forecast, don't go in public. Because it's like, I thought you said it was going to be like, and so there was all that going on. I got to thinking about how weather forecasting has improved over the last half a century, for example, the last 50 years. In 2025, short term forecasting, let's say 1 to 3 days, actually, they're pretty good. A 7 day forecast is pretty good as well. We're usually within, on a 3 day forecast, we can be within a degree or two, usually a degree or two. And rainfall amounts 1 to 3 days, about a tenth of an inch or so, we can, get within that. You get to 7 day forecast, and still it's pretty reliable if you want to go plant a garden or get out into the field or so on. It's relatively um, reliable. But just 50 years ago, according to some research I did, 50 years ago, a 3 day forecast, according to this, was about as reliable as flipping a coin. I don't necessarily agree with that, but today's 7 day forecast is more accurate. A 7 day forecast today is more accurate than a 3 day forecast was in the 1980s. We've improved a lot. And the transformation of weather forecasting has really gone a long way. There was a guy named Lewis Fry Richardson. When we talk about numerical forecasting, and this is really complicated, but I won't get into it too much. But there was a guy named Lewis Fry Richardson, and he had this idea that you could take weather as it is right now and do a little series of calculations and so on, and take the weather now, calculate it, come up with a little bit of a forecast, a little bit ahead, and then do it again, a little bit ahead. And so you just keep building on that little bit of numerical forecasting, and you get bigger and bigger and bigger. His idea back in the 1920s was to have a room full of cubicles with one person sitting next to another. Here you are at the desk. You do your calculation. All right. Here's my forecast. I'm going to give it to you. And the person does that, and so on. They go 1 to 1 to 1. One forecast to the next forecast to the next forecast. This guy, Robert Lewis Fry Richardson, it took him 6 weeks to complete a forecast through this system. It took him 6 weeks to figure out a 6 hour forecast. So it didn't work, but the idea was there. And so when we got into computer forecasting, numerical forecasting, then it could be done like that. The only problem is if bad information goes in to begin with, you build bad information upon bad information upon bad information, and that's where you get some flawed forecasting. So, what about artificial intelligence? Well, this is a whole new world, but artificial intelligence has improved what we call the grid forecasting ability. Back in the old days, we would probably have a forecast that might cover, let's say, 18 square miles. Within 18 square miles, we could figure out that it might be cloudy or it might be raining or so on. And yeah, there's fairly general. These days, you take that 18-mile area, and with AI and modern forecasting, we can bring it down to less than 2 miles. And so forecasting is becoming more reliable as long as the information that goes into it and the calculations, as long as everything is okay along the way. We're still going to have missed forecasts, but I'm telling you, they're a lot more reliable than they were just 50 years ago. Well, that's it for another episode of the Hey Kevin Show. I appreciate your input, by the way. I really like the feedback I see out at the grocery store, at the mall, or wherever I happen to go, and people say, "Hey, I see your podcast. I really enjoy it." So, thank you for that input, and let me know what you'd like to hear me talk about because I'll talk about anything. If you know me, once I get to going, I'll just go and go and go and go. So I have to watch that. But please, I appreciate your input. Don't forget to subscribe and like so we can continue this. And also, I want to leave you with a thought until next we meet. I always like to leave you with a little bit of something. Remember tonight's weather quote. Some days you just have to create your own sunshine and ignore the storm clouds. See you.